10? 10. Am I right? It's week 10?
Yeah, next week you won't be able to count it on your fingers, so
Uh,
we'll have feet on camera for counting toes.
well, next week's going to be super awkward, but thanks for coming in for week 10 Boom Bust, brought to you by Fantasy Football Advice Network. I'm joined by Kyle and Professor to give you your booms and busts for this week. Guys, how are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Glad you could join us this week. Mister, I'm going to take the week off last week.
Well, I'm sorry you guys had to make a lesser show last week. Professor.
It's all good. It's all good. Nice to have you back, though, Corey.
Absolutely, guys. Love being back here. All right, enough of the sweet talk. Let's hop into some booms and busts and try to help people win their week here. Kyle, let's start off with you. Who's your first player you want to talk about?
You never let me go first. I feel so special tonight. This is fantastic.
I had a week off. I forgot how much I didn't like you. All right.
Tony's so much smarter than you always let him go first. So,
look, you're boring the professor. So if you could just hustle up.
The professor needs another nap.
Or two.
So I'm going to start off with a bust. And I'm going to hit you with Kareem Hunt versus Denver. Denver's been really tough to run against. They've shut down Kamara. They've shut down, I forgot who the other one was I looked up earlier, the week before Kamara, or a week after Kamara, Hubbard. Jesus. Shut down Hubbard. Derrick Henry's not human, so of course he still had a good game last week. But Kareem Hunt is no Derrick Henry, and so I think he struggles. I think in a division rivalry game with the Chiefs or with the Broncos this week, I think the Chiefs turn to their best player on their team, Mahomes. Even though they're tough to throw against too, I think they're going to let Mahomes try to be the team that beats them and not Kareem Hunt on the ground.
Well, I was about to say they are a tough defense to throw against. So in my mind, I would say they would probably lean more on the run there. But are you thinking they're going to maybe lock down DeAndre Hopkins and it might be a big Kelsey day?
Probably, yeah. I can see a big Kelsey day. They've got too many receivers. Like, they don't have that many receivers, but they can move them around to where it's going to be hard for them to really focus and shut down one guy. And so I think Mahomes will be able to kind of make that work a whole lot easier than that run game. But you're right. I do see a really big Kelsey day this weekend.
Interesting. Yeah, that Denver defense is pretty good. All right, Tony, let's move over to you, man. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I've got a receiver who's been kind of up and down on the season. Certainly a disappointing season if you drafted him based on where you had to draft him to get him on your roster. He's going to be a bust for me this week, and that's Marvin Harrison Jr. with the Arizona Cardinals. It's a combination of him being unreliable on the season, not really kind of developing that connection yet that we expected with Kyler Murray, and the matchup. The matchup just sucks for him this week with the New York Jets. That defense is legit. That secondary is legit, and I'm not sure that if I own him, I've got him in my starting lineup this weekend.
Yeah, I agree on this. I mean, we just saw what that offense did against Chicago, and it wasn't that great. Jets are a pretty good defense too. All the players on that offense, with maybe the exception of McBride, have been just really just a roller coaster. Yeah. Kyler Murray's been super frustrating. Even James Conner been a little frustrating. Just trying to guess those matchups. So Marvin Harrison Jr., you hit the nail on the head there. Not a great matchup, and just annoying to have in a lineup. Kind of a boomer bust type of option right now, and that's tough. All right, Professor, maybe let's change the mood here and get to something positive.
I'm saving my positives for the closing here. I want to give you another downer.
I'm gonna need a drink.
Want to get the downers out of the way so we can move on to the winners.
That's fair.
Kind of talking about schedule. We certainly Marvin Harrison Jr. has a brutal matchup for receivers, and running back this week who has an absolutely brutal matchup. I think we've already learned so far this season that when your running back faces this team, it is a bust week. and that's Mr. Javonte Williams, the Broncos, going up against this Kansas City defense. So there is no way, shape, or form that I've got Javonte Williams in my starting lineup this week against the Kansas City Chiefs. I expect them to shut him completely out and put this game in the hands of Mr. Bo Nix.
I mean, you're laughing while saying that pretty much sums it up. I'm with you on that. Like, no way I'm putting him in my lineup this week against Kansas City. That's just a no-go. I have nothing to add to that one. All right, Kyle, let's move it over to you. Who's the next player you want to talk about?
I'm going to do the last bust and just keep the pattern going.
Negative Nancy's. Oh, my gosh.
I want to get him out of the way so we can finish on a high note.
That's fair.
Terry McLaurin against Pittsburgh this week. I think he's going to struggle. I think that whole offense could struggle this week. Probably, if I remember right, I think it's probably the toughest team they've played all season so far. So Jaden Daniels could struggle with TJ Watt on his tail. That secondary, Terry McLaurin's going to struggle against it. I'm trying to avoid playing Terry McLaurin this week against this defense.
That's a toughie for me. I don't know. He's been one of the only consistent wide receivers scoring double-digit points all season. I just have a hard time wrapping my head around that one, I guess. But you're right. They haven't had a lot of tough matchups. He's had a pretty good schedule all season. The hardest team they've played so far is maybe Cleveland is probably the toughest secondary they've played all season.
And Cleveland looked a lot better. Their secondary looked a lot better early in the season.
Correct. Yeah.
Than it has recently. So,
yeah, you're right. Anyways, that's a tough one to swallow. You're probably going to have a hard time benching him because you probably won't have other better options, but temper those expectations. I see what you're saying on that for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. Let's work our way back up here, Debbie Downers, and let's try to get some positive going on this show. My goodness, our poor viewers.
Yeah, right. My first boom is going to be Tyrone Tracy. He's taken over this backfield. He's the number one guy. He's getting upwards of 17, 18 carries a game. Singletary, since he's been back, has been single-digit touches. And they've got the easiest team in the league to run on this week in Carolina. I am licking my lips for this matchup for Tyrone Tracy this week.
Yeah, you want to talk about someone who's just kind of come out of nowhere and taken over a backfield completely. Sorry, Singletary. Sorry, not sorry.
Depends on who you're talking to if he came out of nowhere or not.
Well, I mean, for production-wise, we knew he had kind of this skill, this talent, but Singletary was in the way. Singletary gets hurt, Tracy comes in, and then just stays there, right? So he just took it over and just stayed there. So in that way, it was a little bit of a surprise that even when Singletary came back. Anyways, I love this matchup. No way, I say no way. You'd have to have some really good options to sit Tracy this week.
Yes, it'd have to be a very shallow league. Your running backs would have to be ridiculous. He's essentially a must start this week.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, Professor, you've only got good options left, so don't come at me with any of that bad juju.
He just put you on the bust list for that comment. So
he's like, actually, I have a bonus pick this week. I've got another bust.
Well, I was going to play the other side of that coin with Kyle, but based on how you posed the question, let me get some additional bad news out of the way before I get to the positive. And that is, I'll just say the New Orleans Saints. If you're a New Orleans Saints fan, it doesn't get much worse for you than it is right now. If you are looking at the receiver room in New Orleans, it's got to make you sick to your stomach as well. Losing Shakir for the season and now with the injury to Olave, all negative. Positive side of this is that if you have Taysom Hill, you're playing him this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
In your lineup this week. He is definitely going to be a boom guy for me. I think, they don't have really anybody else to turn to right now. As a receiver, we saw him get some good looks last week. They want to get him involved in this game. You got a new head coach with the dismissal of Allen. So I'm looking for him to have a nice workload, be reliable, and be a boom receiver for me at the tight end position. Interesting thing about Taysom is, he's got the dual eligibility in many leagues where you play him at the quarterback or receiver. Or the tight end, which is a nice little wrinkle. But especially if you're in a 2 quarterback league,
or a tight end premium,
UPT, or a tight end premium, absolutely.
Yeah, I like that pick there because they're going to have to use him, right? We saw that last game. You're going to have to use him. They're running out of options, and the way he's can kind of do everything. He could throw the ball, he can run the ball, he can catch the ball. The dude's just a Swiss Army knife. And whereas before he's been kind of one of those boomer bust. You just don't know. It depends on whether he's in my lineup or not. Will kind of determine if he's a boom or a bust. But I feel pretty solid on being able to rely on him this week for the first time, I think, ever, that I feel
one correction I want to make. One question I want to make. I said Saints receivers and said Khalil Shakir. I meant Rashid Shaheed. They could be related. They've got those, kind of.
It's too similar.
Same type of 2-syllable names. So you know what I'm talking about, Shaheed, and yeah. So all good.
It does give you one of the rare opportunities this week to actually play Taysom Hill and feel comfortable about it, though.
Yeah.
Yes. It is rare.
Yeah.
All righty. Speaking of rare, Professor, positivity. Give me some more.
Let's give you the positivity. So the other side of the coin with Kyle, because he's given you Tyrone Tracy with the New York Giants as a boom player, I'm going to give you the running back for the opposing team, the Carolina Panthers, and that's Chuba Hubbard. I think Chuba Hubbard. I think that he is maybe looking at potentially his last opportunity to be a starting running back on your roster, depending on how quickly they work Jonathan Brooks into the rotation there. But this week, I certainly don't expect that to happen his first week, being on the active roster. So I like Hubbard an awful lot in this matchup. He's been very reliable, and I see him this week as a boom at the running back position.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised at how reliable he has been this year.
Yeah.
That was a miss on my part in the offseason. Total miss for me and Kyle. I didn't see it coming. I knew they had made some additions to their offensive line, but I thought they were just kind of overpaid. And then the way the season started off, I was like, told you so. And then they hit their stride, and he's just been going ever since. So he's been a delight for owners. I have zero stock in him, obviously, so I missed out. But I agree here. The Giants are a great matchup for him. After they have the bye week, though, like I said, I'm not really sure. Come back on Kansas City, too. So take advantage. Enjoy this week. And then I'll just say I told you so for the last 3 weeks of the season. Yeah, I'll just enjoy those 3 weeks, maybe. Oh, all right, Kyle. Bring us home with more positivity.
My last boom of the week is Darnell Mooney against those Saints who are just talking about how pitiful they were. Their defense has been horrendous. And with Drake London dealing with that hip pointer issue, Darnell Mooney is going to be a target monster in this game. He's kind of like Tyrone Tracy. Like, he's a borderline must start this week if you've got him on your roster. And, we have 4 bye weeks this week, 4 teams on bye. Like, there's a good chance you have to start him anyways, and you should feel very, very good about that.
Yeah, Mooney has been a huge surprise this season. He was doing good before the London injury. So like you mentioned, if he's dealing with that hit pointer, whether he's playing and hampered by it or if he's sitting out, I'm loving Mooney in this matchup. So last time they played, he only had 8.6 points, but that's not going to be the same this time around. He's become a much larger part of that offense, and again, London's injury. So yeah, I love that. So if you got him off of waivers earlier in the season, you are licking your lips this week for sure. All right, guys, that does it for all of our booms and busts for this week. good luck to you, and hope you keep doing well and trucking toward those playoffs on the season. Kyle, Professor, appreciate your help, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Corey.
Good luck.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.